Hey everyone and welcome back, and in today's video I have finally got the pleasure to say that we have signed Fikayo Tomori, or I'm going to try to pronounce his whole name, and I need to sort of go to my screen board on this one because it is quite a long name. His official name is Fikayomi Oluwadamilola Tomori. I'm not saying that again, but anyway, we have signed Fikayo Tomori outright. The day has finally come. It's been, to be honest, it's been expected as Milan fans because we kind of knew this day was going to come. It was a no-brainer signing for the club and Maldini, considering the transfer fee at hand. But I think, obviously, like I did with Mike Mignon, I need to do a video detailing the player, a little bio on him if you don't know anything about his history or his style of play. I feel like it's right to go through it and why this deal makes so much sense for the club. So before we get into the details of Tomori's, history of a footballer and his style of play, let's talk about the factual things about him. Firstly, he's 23 years old, which is a great age to have someone obviously come into the club that meets the model and the project that we're trying to go forward, and having these sort of young players who have high potential of growth and also high potential of future resale if the day ever comes to it. So 23 years old is spot on with what we want there. The money involved with the transfer was around 28 million euros, which translates to about 25 million pounds if you sort of want that conversion. So 28 million euros for us Italian fans is a very, very good deal for a player of his age and a player of his caliber and his potential to even grow even further. He signed a 4-year deal that takes him up to the 30th of June 2025. I would have liked to see that happen, a 5-year deal. So I'm a bit confused why that didn't happen, but I guess a 4-year deal is just as good. Potential for renewals in the future, depending on how his career is going, etc. So yeah, basically overall, what we look on paper, what we see is a very good deal for a very good player. Now it's time to look at Tomori's style of play, and if you have not seen Tomori play 90 minutes of football, I would highly advise you to do that. And the next chance you get to see it for AC Milan, or if you can catch any clips on YouTube, I think only like sort of videos and highlight reels don't do it enough justice as what you see on a regular basis and seeing him play. The guy is just a complete beast. The first thing I'm going to make of note on his style of play is how aggressive he is, and he showed this from the first game when he came on as a sub in the Coppa Italia against Inter Milan, and he had the job of marking Alexis Sanchez and Romelu Lukaku. He was very aggressive, pressing on the centre forward, and that's something that, considering the centre back that he's basically kicked out the team, Alessio Romagnoli, something us Milan fans were screaming out for, because we needed someone who was brave enough to go into challenges and sort of as a foil with the other centre-back he's paired next to, as I mentioned in last week's video, Simon Kaya. It works perfectly. He's the more aggressive one, goes into the tackles, while Kaya sort of backs off and cleans things up in case he gets beat, for example, or he's more of the aerial threat. But Tomori is definitely like the pit bull of the two, and so his aggression is something that has to be noted at first. Also, the fact, what kind of leads off the aggressive part of his game is how fast he is. He's incredibly fast for a centre-back, and that's something that's hard to come by in the modern game. Of course, centre-backs these days are required to be more astute at passing, also good in the air, tackling and whatnot. But speed is sometimes something that not all centre-backs have. You can't really have everything. But Tomori does have this. He has the aggression, great in the tackling, which we'll come on to, but his speed is something to be envied in any centre-back for any team. He's rarely, never actually seen him beat on a one-on-one sort of chase for the ball. Of course, there's been moments where you kind of feel like, what comes to mind is the goal against Correa in defeat to Lazio 3-0. I think that's more of positional play and where to sort of manoeuvre a centre-forward. When it comes to speed and when it comes to beating a man with aggression and speed, he cannot be beat. I've not seen it. So let's see if that happens in the future, potentially in the Champions League when he comes up against an Mbappe or something like that. If that happens, then he might be finally beat. But from what we've seen so far, it's been very impressive in that department. Following on from that, the modern centre-back is required to do so much more than just defend. I guess the old age of a Alessandro Nesta or Baresi, if we're talking about Milan centre-backs of the past, are gone. It's quite hard to find someone who is that old school centre-back and has that mentality to defend first, and the rest of it is just sort of will come and kind of like irrelevant. But with Tomori, I find a lot of I see a lot of the sort of Italian side to him with that aggression. I guess that comes from playing in England and the faster league, and he still needs to learn from that in his positional play. A lot of centre backs have spoken about this, and who have played alongside him, like Kaya or Romagnoli. They do feel like he is quite a typical English defender. Go in first and think about the rest later. That's something he's adapting. I will say his strengths to his style of play also is the fact that he's not shy away from tackling. He's not shy away from the blocking side of the game. He kind of wants to make those last ditch challenges, and I guess you can't really sort of have your cake and eat it if you want either one. You could have a Romagnoli who's a bit more passive and standoffish, or you could have someone like Tomori who is much more bold. He's willing to make those challenges, or even just commit because he knows he has the pace to back it up. I prefer the latter. I do prefer someone who has confidence in themselves that, okay, if they've missed the first challenge, they'll make up for it with the next because he has the pace to keep it going. And that's something for now is so important to the Milan setup. It's allowed us to have the confidence to press higher as a team, as a unit, because we know that we have someone in the back line who has the speed and to not get caught out. And also, I have to say as well, for a massive strength for Tomori is his concentration. His concentration's pretty good, I would say. He does seem to snap at opportunities when you feel like, oh, the centre forward's going to get to it. He just comes out of nowhere and gets a block in or gets a interception or a clearance. He's very good with that, and I feel like that's an underrated part of his game. We can't just look at him as just an aggressive person who's brash with his challenges and quick to go in and tackle the centre forward. He has a lot more intelligence to his game, and I feel like it's only going to grow the more he plays in Serie A. I don't really like to use rating websites when it comes to reviewing a player, because I feel like ratings can be misconstrued just because of stats in the game. Like if you get goals and assists, that bumps up your ratings, but it doesn't actually tell you how well you played on the pitch. I did kind of look on Who Scored website to see what rating they gave Tomori, and it's kind of actually impressive 6.93, which might as well be 7 out of 10 for his overall games in a Milan jersey. That's very good. That's one of the top performers of the club. If I would say if there are any weaknesses to the player, there are definitely weaknesses because he is not the finished article because of his age, and he has still a lot to grow with. I would say his positional play is definitely one of them. He has been caught out a few times with a few goals. A few that come to mind already is the goal that Traore, I believe, for Manchester United scored in the first leg in the Europa League fixture. He got caught off on the back on that one. Another one, obviously mentioned before, was the Correa one-on-one against Lazio. So there have been times where his positional play has been suspect. This is something he can easily improve on in Serie A in Italy, and playing with good centre-backs like Kaya, even Romagnoli when he wants to play. They seem to work as a good foil, and he will only learn from this the more he progresses in the league and improves his language. And yeah, I feel like that's something that can easily be improved. I would say as well, like I mentioned before with the modern centre-back, his long passing isn't great. Not to say I want that from a centre-back. I can always rely on Kaya or Romagnoli to have that in their pocket. But I would, I guess I would like to see when he's on the ball, there is an outlet option if you wanted to make a long ball. But his short passing is pretty good. He does, he's improved on that, especially when he plays left centre-back to improve his left-footed passing. He seems to be improving that quite a lot. So I've got no quarrels with his short passing, but it's more the long passing and his sort of array of vision. But you can't have everything, I guess, in a centre-back. You can't have everything. Now it's time to look at something quite interesting. Although I do like to talk about the player's style of play, I want to talk about the player's history. His history as a football player and his history, it's kind of like his upbringing as well. And it's something I think a lot of people just don't know about if they don't know about the player. Tomori's backstory. He was born in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Not a lot of people know that, I believe. A lot of people might think he was born in London or the UK, due to playing for Chelsea and obviously being capped for the English side. He was actually born in Canada to Nigerian parents. I believe he obviously moved over at some point to join the Chelsea Academy and the youth team and work his way up through the ranks there. So yeah, so he has a bit of history in Canada with him, which we'll come back to on an international basis. So yeah, Tomori eventually moved to London and signed for Chelsea to follow his dream to play football. And, he impressed very, very well at the youth level. I know a lot of Chelsea fans who loved his sort of surge through the youth team. It impressed a lot of fans. And that's eventually what got him loan moves to championship sides, Derby, Brighton and Hull, where he racked up about nearly around 100 appearances at championship level, which is very good for any young player trying to learn his craft and gain experience, because you won't get that at your parent club, especially someone as a parent club as top as Chelsea. He was never going to get a starting role. If anything, it was going to be a bit part role. So, there was a necessity to loan him out to lower league sides to gain him that experience and play along people at his level, and also use and pick up things and things that will, especially in a centre-back position, you'll learn as you go along. You need to grow some sort of intelligence, IQ, when it comes to positional play or concentration, something you can only pick up by playing games on a regular basis. So he managed to get that at a championship level, and eventually he moved back to Chelsea. And as Chelsea had a transfer embargo, like a transfer ban, I believe Frank Lampard was coach of the side when this happened. Lampard has no other choice but to trust into the youth team players, and obviously with a history of Derby there, he trusted in Tomori, gave him a starter role, and Tomori racked up 27 senior appearances for the Chelsea side, and this is where he impressed obviously at a higher level, playing in Champions League fixtures. I can never forget this block he had against I believe it was Ziyech in the fixture against Ajax. He was incredible that game. That's when sort of the eyes of England and the world were sort of appearing on this young centre-back for Chelsea. But things happen. I guess it's kind of like the story of football, where eventually when Chelsea's transfer ban was eradicated and they were allowed to sign players again, and this is kind of where it fits back into Tomori's future at Chelsea, that Lampard then got an array of players in. Thiago Silva came into the club. Rudiger was given another chance at centre-back. Christensen. Tomori found his spot as the starting centre-back completely gone. And this was at the start of last season. And this is something that clearly upset Tomori, because he felt like he was gaining his progression at the club and gaining the experience required to elevate himself to the top tier level of centre-back position. And that eventually led him to obviously come to Milan. So yeah, luckily for us as Milan fans, Tomori joined us on loan in January 2021, and from the get-go, I have to say I wasn't impressed to the point where I'm at right now. There was a lot of speed, there was a lot of aggression, there was a lot of raw talent at a centre-back position. You could see it. Obviously, he hadn't played for a while either on a consistent basis. He was just eager to play. At the same time, there were mistakes there. There were the occasional mistakes. There was getting caught out of positioning. That was something that clearly, between himself, Stefano Pioli, picking up the language, the other centre-backs he was next to and getting used to them and the positional play of the team, he picked up and he increased his IQ on the pitch. And, we have to look at how he finished the season. He was just an absolute monster at a centre-back position. Rarely getting caught out, just improving his positional play to another level. It just gets me thinking of how much potential we have to see him increase as a player, increase us. How are we going to do defensively? We finished the season with 5 clean sheets on a trot when we were conceding goals back to back, and that includes against games like Juventus and Atalanta. It just gets me thinking that the more he just picks things up as he goes along, and the confidence of him, the more that it's just going to grow. And I just got complete confidence in our back line, where I was sort of a bit worried, especially with Theo Hernandez on the left side, bombing forward all the time. Do we have enough coverage on that side? And when he does, I just know that we got Tomori there to completely cover him, and that's something that fills me with a lot of hope going forward. But yeah, basically, with Milan, he had 22 appearances over the course of half a season. He scored 1 goal, obviously that vital header in the 3-0 thrashing of Juventus towards the end of the season, which had us all screaming in jubilation. It was a fantastic moment where he just out-leaped Giorgio Chiellini for the header. I'm pretty sure I had that saved as my phone background for a week or two. It was incredible, and he had no yellow cards. No bookings, no red cards, which is quite rare, quite rare for a centre-back. Obviously, someone who gets into a lot of challenges, a lot of one-on-ones. It kind of goes to show you that although he makes mistakes, he's not perfect. That he doesn't make, stupid mistakes. He can cover himself. He doesn't feel like the need to pull someone down if they've gotten past him. He'll chase him back up on the one-on-one if they want to go for a sprint match with him. They dare to go for a sprint match with him. He's that confident, and that's something we can't kid about. No yellow cards. That's quite impressive. Internationally, there's not much for me to scream about with Tomori. He only has 1 senior cap for England. there's not much I can really talk about on the senior side. I am completely infuriated why he was not called up for England squad in the Euros this summer. It just doesn't make sense. The only reason I can think about is that Gareth Southgate hasn't seen him live, so maybe he just didn't feel confidence that he could embed himself with the squad, or there's only so much you can work with highlights or watching a game from a TV set. I get it, but at the same time, it's the wrong decision. The reason why is other centre-backs there who are clearly not at his quality, but that's not, it's not for me to complain about. We've got a player who's going to be completely fully fit on the off-season and come back to us in September, well, even in July, raring to go, and clearly want to earn a place back into the international setup. I mentioned before, obviously, his history of Canada. This is quite interesting to find out about, and I learned about this, was that he actually played his first international game at youth level for Canada. Probably clearly thought he was never going to get the opportunity to play for England's setup. Maybe that's lack of confidence in himself or whatever, but he chose to play for Canada in an under-20 game. Only one cap for Canada, and that was against England, where he outmarked Marcus Rashford in the fixture, and that's when English eyes were like, oh, hold on. This guy can get English citizenship. How about we get him on board with the England setup? And since then, he has completely progressed his way through the English setup, very similar to how he did with Chelsea, and obviously impressed a lot of people up until this point. So you have to think that from next season, we'll see him feature a lot more for England, just because I know their setup. I feel like he is a shoo-in to be a starter for the England side in a few years' time to come, or at least the third option as a centre-back, but that's for them to decide, I guess. So yeah, wrapping things up, we have finally signed Fikayo Tomori, and that's amazing for me. I feel like it was a no-brainer decision, and I know as fans as well, we're getting very impatient, but to be honest, the transfer market hasn't actually officially opened yet. I believe it opens at the start of July, and we need to be a bit quite patient. Deals are being done. I get it. We want to see more. We want answers to renewals. We want answers to players who we're going to sign and whatnot. It's coming. I believe it's coming. But let's take some perspective to this. With this Tomori deal, we have spent 41 million euros currently, obviously including the Mike Mignon deal. We have to be sort of confident the club, the Maldini and Gazidis know what they're doing. I watched the Gazidis interview last week. It was very impressive. I liked what he said. I've got confidence in what they're doing and the movements of the club. There is some obviously realisticness to it. We can't just spend money willy-nilly. We are still trying to eradicate the debt that was previously there from previous years. Anyone who thought that we were going to get back to spending, big money transfers, I'm sorry, but that's completely wrong. It was never going to be the case. We have to become a perennial Champions League qualifying side for that. But anyway, I'm just trying to say is be patient. This is a very good sign of things to come, because this is for me was the right decision to sign Tomori outright. It was a no-brainer. I would have been completely infuriated if it didn't happen, and questioning management more so than I've ever done before in the past. Because this was even more, comparing the club like Chelsea and signing a player outright after a loan deal gets me thinking back to Bakayoko and his deal, and I was pretty livid when that didn't happen and we didn't sign him outright. That was down here. Tomori's up there. If we didn't sign Tomori outright, my God, I would have been completely angry. But we did. We are here because he did sign outright, and I have to thank the club and Maldini for that, so we can continue his adventure with our club, AC Milan. So until next time, guys, hopefully another signing I can announce by next week or the week after. Keep it good, keep it safe, and Forza Milan.